Good afternoon, students. Yes, good afternoon. So, how are all of you? How all of you are doing? Nice? Very good. I am fine, Sanjana. Thank you. Okay. So, many of you are present today. So, that's a good thing, because today the topic or the portion which I am going to start. Are Nazmin? What a pleasant surprise. Nazmin is here. I am very happy that today Nazmin is there. Okay. So, what I was telling, that today the topic which I am going to talk about, as I told you before, it is the next chapter, that is chapter number 11, and the topic is the rebels and the Raj. Rebel and the Raj. And in this topic, the syllabus where your book starts, it's a little bit ahead, but you have to understand the backdrop of this rebel and the relationship with the Raj, then you can understand that portion. So, the portion which today I am going to talk about, yes Ananya, good afternoon. So, the portion which I am going to talk about today is that the backdrop of the rebel. The rebel which is mentioned in your book as a rebel, it was not only a rebel. If we name it, if we call it a rebel, only a rebel, then I think we will not do justify, or we will not do any kind of justification to the actual event, because it was more than something more than a rebel, but yes, something less than a war. So, we are talking about the event called the Revolt of 1857. This is a revolt which took place. This is a revolt which took place in the year 1875 against the British Raj. The then independent rulers of India, they fought for a last chance to remove the British from India. This was their last try. As you know that in my last chapter, when I was talking about the permanent settlement and all, there I have talked about the Battle of Plassey, where Jubananshu asked that what is Plassey. So, Plassey is a place. I told you that revolt or that war, the Battle of Plassey, took place in the year 1757. It is just 100 years after that. You can see it, that the Battle of Plassey took place in the year 1757 and the revolt took place in the year 1857, 100 years. And I told you when I started that chapter, I gave you a very simple definition of colonialism, right? I told you that, remember that when a country comes to other country and then first controls and then captures its politics, economy and society, then it's known as colonialism. So, through the Battle of Plassey, the capturing part was going on, and through the permanent settlement, Rajwari settlement, all these settlement policies, all these Santhal rebellions and all, we were having the capturing part. Now, after this, the controlling part will start. The revolt of 1857 is a turning point in Indian history. It's a turning point. If in this war or if in this revolt the Indians would have won, if they would have won, then the history of India would have something different. If this revolt was not there, then also the history of India would have been something different than we know it today. So that is why the revolt of 1857 had a great impact in Indian history. We cannot go ahead to learn Indian history without learning about the revolt of 87. It was a huge revolt which started with the North India, then it shifted to, it started with Eastern India, precisely, and then it shifted towards the North India, and till the end it spread up to the center of India. But yes, the northwestern frontier province and the southern part was completely absent from this revolt. Understood? So, we can say that in this revolt of 1857, a mass of Indians, they fought against the Britishers to remove the Indians, and that took place in the northern half of India. Now we have to understand that what happened actually, that the Indians, they started to revolt. The Indians, they started to hold weapons against the Britishers. There are several reasons behind it. There are several reasons behind the starting of this revolt of 1857. What were those? Let us discuss one by one. What happened that after 1757, slowly as the Britishers, they started to come up with their own values and own interests, slowly they showed their own color. Slowly the Indians, they understood that the Britishers have come to India to satisfy their own interest only. They are not going to check, they are not going to listen to others' plight, others' interest, anything else. Understood? So, one by one, different communities, different groups, they became angry against the British East India Company or the British rule. Number one reason is the political cause. It's not there in your book, but questions may come. So please be very careful. If you want to note it down, you can note it down. Okay, the first one is a political cause. What happened? That as the Britishers, they came, they started to impose land revenues, and they started to collect revenues from Indians. It was like a greed which was growing to them. They wanted to control all the states of India, and in that manner, in that wish, they wanted to capture the Indian states. But all Indian states were not in the same position. Some were very brave, like the Rajputs, right? So the Britishers took two different policies to control the Indian states. One policy was known as subsidiary alliance. One system or one way or one policy was known as subsidiary allowance. In this subsidiary allowance, what was said? It was said that any Indian ruler who are weak, if they want the British assistance, then they can ask for it, and if they accept the British assistance, then a British officer will be present at his court. He will give advice to the ruler. A group of British soldiers will be present at that particular state to help the ruler, and the ruler independently cannot take any decisions. He had to depend on the Britishers or the British resident or the officer who is there to take the decision. He cannot make any allowance with any other Indian ruler. And one of the states of India who subsidiary alliance, ALLIANCE, a subsidiary, substantiary not, subsidiary, SUBSIDIARY. Jivananshu, got it? It's subsidiary, not substantiary. Jivananshu, got it? Okay, subsidiary alliance. Fine. So the Indian state which accepted the subsidiary alliance was the state of Hyderabad under Nizam. Nizam said that I am very weak, I need the assistance of the Britishers, so I will go with subsidiary alliance. So if subsidiary alliance is there, so the independent nature of the ruler, that means the independent control of Nizam is gone. Not only Nizam, but other Indian rulers, many other Indian rulers also accepted this point or this policy, and they accepted the friendship of the Britishers, right? But still there were some other cities or other states which did not come under the subsidiary alliance. So the Britishers, they introduced the second policy, which is known as doctrine of lapse. Jivananshu, it's doctrine, DOCTRIN, doctrine of lapse, LAPAC. Okay? So, doctrine of lapse. So, what does this mean? According to this policy, the Britishers said that any Indian ruler who doesn't have a biological or natural heir, that means biological or natural son and daughter, after the death of the king, the state will immediately hand it over to the British company. That means during that time, we are talking about 1857, so it's the mid of 19th century. So during that time, what happened? Many rulers, they used to die without their children. They have married and they have gone to the war and they have died there. I have said, Tona, Jivananshu, it's doctrine of lapse, DOCTRIN, doctrine of lapse, LAPAC. Dekho na tumi. Write it down. DOCTRIN, doctrine of Laps, L-A-P-A-C, understood? Best. So what I say that many rulers were there who had doctrine hobe, yes, doctrine hobe, any ache ekta, yes, doctrine hobe. So any ruler who is going to die without a natural heir, they sometimes used to take adopted children. Like the king has died, there is nobody to rule. Now the queen, she adopted a son or a daughter, and then the whole empire goes to that adopted son and daughter. Okay, but this adopted case was rejected by the Britishers through the doctrine of lapse. It was said that adoption will not be recognizable, and with this policy, the Britishers wanted to take the states like Jhansi, Nagpur, Awadh, and so on and so on. In Awadh, the ruler forgot his name. Suddenly I forgot the name of the ruler of Awadh. Just check to Alka, if you have the book, name of the ruler of Awadh, it's there. Ashmita, if you have the book, just check na. I don't have the book today. Can you hear me? Alvida, what is this? Jonakshu? Nah, Riddhi, no. Yes, Rajalakshmi, thank you. Wajid Ali Shah. Yes, thank you Anulipi. It's Wajid Ali Shah. Thank you. From where you got Jivanangshu Alvida? What does this mean? This means Tata bye bye. Wajid Ali Shah. So what happened to Wajid Ali Shah is that Wajid Ali Shah was not having an adopted son. He was having his own son. But his empire, that means the Awadh, was taken on the basis of bad ruling system. Because Wajid Ali Shah was not a very powerful ruler. He loved biryani, he loved music, dance, he used to write poetry, and all throughout the day he used to take opium and alcohol, and he used to sleep. So more or less Wajid Ali Shah was not a good ruler, he was a worthless ruler. So as he was a worthless ruler, the Britishers said that as Wajid Ali Shah is a worthless ruler, there is no point of having him as a ruler. Understood? So remove him, and the whole Awadh, the whole Lucknow region will be under the control of the Britishers. And Wajid Ali Shah, it is expected that he should fight, he should say something, but Wajid Ali Shah did not say anything. He left his town and he came to Kolkata. He lived his last days in Kolkata near Metia Buruj, and he was the person who introduced biryani to Kolkata. So you should be grateful to Wajid Ali Shah. And as he was a worthless ruler, but he was a good human being. His citizens or his subjects, they used to love him a lot. When he was coming out, he was crying, and all of his subjects were also crying. And he started writing a poetry, and it's now a ghazal. You can hear it in the YouTube also. The ghazal goes like this: जब छोड़ चले लखनऊ नगरी तो क्या गुजरी तो क्या गुजरी. So it was like that the whole life of Lucknow has gone, because he was a person who introduced all those Kathak, dancers, the music and the gharana of Lucknow in Lucknow, Wajid Ali Shah. So when he left, every life of the Lucknowi gharana was gone. So he wrote the poem, Jab chhod chale Lucknow nagri, to kya guzri. It's a ghazal now, and you can hear it in the YouTube. It's available there, because there was a film on Wajid Ali Shah. I hope all of you know it. If you don't know, it's a shame. That it was made by Satyajit Ray, and it was a Hindi movie. And you know Gabbar Singh, Amjad Khan, he played Wajid Ali Shah, and the name of the movie is Shatranj Ke Khilari. So Shatranj Ke Khilari is based on Wajid Ali Shah, and it's a movie directed by Satyajit Ray. There the song is still there, okay, so you can hear the song. So this was the way how the Britishers, with the two policies, that is subsidiary alliance and the doctrine of lapse, tried to capture the Indian ruling powers. Now just tell me one thing, that you are a ruler. Now one fine day you find that a British company or a foreign company is there who wants to do trade with you. You agreed, and slowly you see that you realize that this company is becoming all and all in your state. And then one day they are telling that you are no longer the ruler, you have to leave the state and the state will be belong to the company. Will you be very happy? Will anyone be very happy? Definitely not. So the kings and rulers, and in Jhansi the case was the Rani was there, Manikarnika, she was there, and she was known as Rani Lakshmi Bai. She was also not ready to accept the supremacy of the Britishers. So they were searching for a point, they were searching for a time to attack the Britishers and to remove the Britishers from India. This is the political cause of the revolt of 1857. Then the next cause, number 2. Number 2 is the economic cause. What is this economic cause? You know that from 1757, the Britishers, they are coming to India, and slowly they are imposing tax on Indian people. They are taking the money. Not only that, so agriculture, trade, everything was in their hand. And slowly, when the British made, the Manchester made goods started to come in India, which you have read in class 10 and 11 about the industrialization. When it happened and when the British goods started to come in India, the Indian craftsmen, the Indian craftspersons, they lost their job. So totally there was a total economic failure in the British period. So all those people who were related to the Indian economy, that means the businessmen, the traders, the peasants, the workers, the laborers, weavers, and everyone related to the craft and factory and agricultural sector, they didn't like the British rule at all, right? So definitely they were not happy, and they were fighting, they were finding some way to fight against the Britishers. Understood? Fine. Now point number 3. Point number 3 is a social cause. Sorry. Social cause. What is a social cause? During this time, social cause can be interpreted also as a religious cause, okay? So social cause and religious cause are more or less same. So what is a social cause? The social cause is this, that when the Britishers they came in India, they saw that some Indian rules and regulations, both Hindu and Muslim, they are not good. Like the sati, like the child marriage, like the widow process, like the parda system which are not good, and they don't allow women to study, they don't allow women to go outside, they don't allow two widows get remarried. So they thought that there should be some social upgradation, and along with the Britishers, other western educated Indians like Raja Ram Mohan Roy or Vidyasagar, they also started to promote the westernization. So when this westernization or when this trend of westernization was going on, during that time the Britishers, they continued to make laws, and they made laws to ban sati, they made laws to ban child marriage, they make law for widow remarriage, they made law for dissolving the parda system. So it affected the social issues of Hindus and Muslims, which they didn't like. Understood? This is the social cause. Now the fourth one is the military cause. Military cause is that in India, the Britishers, they had the army, and in that army most of the men were Indians. But those Indians who were fighting in the British Indian army, they were not given proper salary, they were not given promotions, they were not given pension. When they died in the war, their families were not given compensation, and even they were not allowed to have the religious mark, like they were not allowed to have the turban of the Sikh, they were not allowed to put the tilak of the South Indians. So the military people, they were not at all happy with the Britishers, and they were planning to do some kind of revolt against the Britishers, which triggered with the fifth cause, which I will discuss tomorrow, means next week. Okay. So till now, any questions? Yes, ma'am, and taboo also. That means yes, taboo is also there. That means we always think about the past rules and regulations. Yes. Fine. So remember the four causes. The fifth one and the alternate one I will discuss on the next day, and we'll discuss about the spread of the revolt. Okay. Thank you.